thanks for coming back to the second half. Hope you all managed to get some cake and coffee and tea and refreshments, and just some networking going on as well, so that's really good. I think I'll make a note and have a bit of a longer networking next time we do this. So moving on, I'd like to introduce you to Emilie Dutton, who is our auction specialist. Nock Deighton are doing a lot more auctions now because we're finding that it is obviously a lot quicker to buy and sell properties, and we've become very successful in auctioning properties. So Emilie is we're partnered with I Am Property, and Emilie is here to talk to you about the advantages of buying and selling through auctions. So thank you, Emilie. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emilie. I work for I Am Property, I Am Sold, and in connection with Nock Deighton. So we're dealing with the modern method of auction, selling properties through a traditional, different way to private treaty, to what everybody's used to. So I'm going to run through the basics of auction, the modern method, suitable opportunities, what sort of properties work well selling through this way, the method in comparison to private treaty, how it differs, and a bit on the pricing, benefits to a seller and benefits to a buyer, and a bit on the buyer journey, so how it differs to traditional, what's included in the auction pack, because we have sight of that up front, so a bit of a run through with that, and then a couple of case studies which have actually sold through auction that have done quite well. So the key information that we've got here, in addition to the purchase price, there's a non-refundable reservation fee. So that's paid by the buyer in addition to the price. That is calculated, so we've got the figures here, so less than 250,000, it's 4.8% including VAT. Anything over that is 3.6%. So that's paid on the agreement of the sale, so as soon as the buyer and vendor agree, that reservation fee is taken. We have fixed timescales of 56 days to exchange and complete, so it's considerably quicker than the private treaty transaction time. And the reason that we're able to do this is because we get the auction pack done up front. So a big chunk of the conveyancing is done beforehand, so we're able to slice that time frame down. I've got a slide to cover what's included in the auction pack, so buyers have sight of that before they make a bid, so they can make an informed decision and pay that reservation fee. It's a transparent bidding process, so everybody can see what the bids are coming in at, so there's no best and finals, it's full disclosure to everybody that can log on in the portal. All held online, so everything's, you would go through Nock Deighton and then you have a dashboard login, so you can see everything in other people's bids and the property information. And then we've got a less than 3% fall through rate, and that's because we take financial commitment from the buyer. So the chances of falling through is considerably less. And there's no estate agents of these. So suitable auction opportunities. So I think sometimes auction comes with a bit of a stigma around homes under the hammer, run-down properties that need a hell of a lot of work. But the message that we want to get across is that it's completely about the vendor circumstances. So, and why that vendor wants to sell. So, in terms of what the property looks like, it's irrelevant really. Obviously, you do get your normal properties that need doing up, and you have got a little bit more room in the pricing to get a good deal. But we sell plenty of properties, well over into the high figures. But it's all about the vendor's circumstances. So, is speed and security important, and does that sort of outweigh potentially getting the best top price? Are they looking for a quicker sale? Then they would fall into the modern method of auction. Because we're working towards the 56 days to exchange and completion, we can't really work with a chain. So we're typically talking about vacant properties that can move quickly. Another thing to think about is if obviously we're looking at on average about 3 months for a property to go through private treaty, with that sitting empty, whereas you could have the money in the bank with 56 days with the modern method. So it's another thing to think about. And fall throughs, so where circumstances the property's fallen through and they thought it was going to be, a completion was going to be imminent, Has the circumstances changed? Can we look at that so we can get the process done quicker, so we're not then entering into another 3-month cycle, potentially, or more. This is a good visual to show the difference in time frames. So obviously at the top we've got private treaty, which we're all used to. So we get the instruction, we'll sell it, and then all is where the lengthy process takes place until we're at a point of we can exchange. We do all of that in advance before we can sell, before we can agree a sale, which obviously more than half makes the time frame a lot shorter. So the main reasons are, so you've got the security from the buyer, with the low fall through right, like I say, and you've got the commitment to those time scales. So how the pricing works, so there'll be a non-disclosed reserve from the vendor, so that's what they want to walk away with. So then the guide price is typically 10% below that. So that allows to drive interest. We try and be as close as we can to the reserve, to what a vendor wants to achieve, so we can reach it, but we will go on at a guide price less than. Buyers need to factor in the reservation fee into the overall spend, so this is being taken into consideration when you've got a valuer coming out to you to give you a market appraisal. When we're organising the pricing, that's already being factored in. So it's very much that the fee isn't in addition to market values, they're paying over the odds, it's factored into the overall cost, it's just proportioned differently because you're paying that upfront. And of course, a lower reserve price means a more attractive start bid. Similarly to private treaty, the more competitive that you can be with the pricing to start with, you're going to get more calls and it's going to generate more interest naturally. So these are some of the benefits to the seller. So there's obviously no estate agency fees to pay, which can be quite weighty when we're talking into high figures. The speed, so it's a faster exchange and completion, so getting your money quicker. You've got financial commitment from the buyer, so there's no setting the sale up and then them pulling out last minute or throughout the process. You've got that up front, which minimises the chance of the sale in falling through. Fixed timescales to work within, so you're able to plan ahead. So you know exactly what you're working with, both parties are aware, and obviously the solicitor has to adhere to those time frames as well. You can get a mortgage with auction properties, which is something that I don't think many people realise. So with the modern method, obviously providing that the property is mortgageable, this route doesn't restrict all of buyers, so anybody can buy through auction. They just have to have that reservation fee available to pay. The attractive guide price, like I said, it encourages competitive bidding, so we're almost taking the ceiling off the pricing, so it will ultimately sell for what somebody's prepared to pay for it, but it's just getting the interest earlier on. And you've also got the reserve price as a safety blanket, so the property will not sell for less than the reserve. In a situation if we've had less interest than we'd hoped, then that reserve can be altered. So it's set initially, but it can be altered should it need to, but most chances that we would achieve the reserve. So really the main 3 principles that we work with are speed, security, and then we've got a solution for it, which is the modern method. So this is just a visual of what it's like buying for a property through auction. So you would book the viewing as normal with Nock Deighton if you've seen a property. When you see it online, you'll just notice some wording that will differ to say that this property is being sold by a modern method of auction. There's a reservation fee involved, just a bit of text there, but other than that, it would just look the same as it normally would. So you'd contact your local branch to book a viewing. You would then get a call from an auction specialist, so that's who works for Ryan Property in association with Nock Deighton. So for Nock Deighton, we've got Beth there. So she works as part of the team in the branch, so she'll give you a call just to make sure that you understand that it's being sold by modern method. Have you got any initial questions, anything that you want to cover off before you're viewing? You would then make an account online so you can register to bid, and that's when you see the auction pack. So if it's readily and available, it can be seen before your viewing, depending on timescales of when we've gone live. But you're already being able to see the documents associated with the property before you go to view. Then when you're looking to bid, You can either bid before the end of the auction time frame. Typically everybody waits towards the end, and the auction time frame is about 2 weeks from when it's set live until when the auction ends. So that's the period of time. So that gives you time to do any viewings, review the auction pack. If you required a survey, we would ask that it's done in that time frame. So then when you make the informed bid, your survey ready and everything's boxed off, so it's not being done afterwards. Because if you win the bid, then obviously it's the reservation fee that's payable. When the auction ends, the highest bidder wins and the reservation fee gets taken. When then the conveyancing process starts, obviously we've done a hell of a lot of it to begin with, so that can be shortened, but on average we work towards 56 days from when the contracts have been issued. The important thing to mention is obviously that the solicitors just need to be aware that we're working within those time frames, because obviously conveyancing is taking a lot longer at the moment, so we just need to make sure that they're able to deliver on that. And then, yeah, so it's the same, so it's all through Nock Deighton, but then we work, we'll have a dedicated auction specialist that deals with you. But in terms of the actual process, everything is still through the branch, so you do the viewing through the branch, you know, you're not dealing with a completely separate team that, you know, your relationship is with the estate agent, aren't normal. So the benefits to the buyer is obviously you've got the auction pack readily available up front, so you're making an informed bid. You've got commitment from the vendor, so where that's a huge benefit to a seller that you're getting commitment from the buyer, likewise it's the same. So you haven't got a vendor that's going to change their mind or pull out and then you're left without the property that you'd hoped for. So you've got the commitment there. You're able to make an informed purchase with the detail in advance because you've had sight of the auction pack. So there's no surprises throughout the conveyancing later on. Like I say, you can get a mortgage on the auction properties, there's no gazumping, minimal chance of fall through because both parties are tied in. And you've got the transparency from the onset, so there's no best and finals, you know, you don't know where to gauge when you're ringing the agent saying, oh, you know, I really want the property, how much extra do I need to put in to be able to get it? There's none of that, it's completely transparent. We do also do something with automatic bidding if required, so when the auction end date is looming, if you're not available, you can give Beth, the auction specialist, your maximum that you're prepared to pay, and you can go in at start bid, and then it will just go up in £500 increments. So it can be taken care of you as well if you don't want to do that yourself, up until the ceiling that you're prepared to pay. And like I say, it's still the same branch experience with Nock Deighton. So you've got peace of mind. If you've got any questions, you can still go into the branch. You know, you're not just dealing with a company you're not comfortable with. The other benefit, obviously, if you're buying a property as a landlord through auction, is that you can get your rental income quicker because the transaction time is much quicker. So obviously, if you're buying a vacant property, you're not having to wait 3, 4, at least sometimes more months. You can get your tenant in, you can get the rental income in 56 days. This is what's included in the auction pack. So we've got the title registering plan, just local searches, water and drainage, property information forms, fixtures and fittings, probate if required. We can sell a property pending probate as long as we've got a letter from the solicitor to say that it's been applied for. So that doesn't put an obstacle in the way if that's the circumstances. EPC and then tenancy agreement and the management pack if applicable. So the cost of that is 445 including VAT, so this is the only cost to the vendor, but it's payable only on completion of a successful sale. So I will absorb that cost up front and then it's paid at the end. These are just a couple of case studies. So this one, the top one sold in Telford for 95. It was actually bought by a company that buys a lot of properties to rent out. It was vacant, bought as an investment. The rent was around 700, so the yield was there. And then I put this one on just as a contrast to show that it doesn't need to be sort of sub 100, 150 for the auction to work. So the fee on that, obviously, for what the buyer would have paid would have been quite weighty, but they'd factored it in to the overall market value of how much the property was worth. This was actually a probate sale. We had a number of viewings on it, and it sold for 465. And then I've just got a couple more with Nock Deighton for the recent sales. Again, both in Telford, so vacant, This one sold for 100,000, bought by a landlord with a £700 rental income. And then the other one with 10 viewings, the start price was 55 and we sold it at 60 with the rental of 530. So obviously the yield needs to be there for the pricing to work, which is why we're competitive on the offset. Quicker than everybody else. Has anybody got any questions? Yeah, Sam's auction, yeah.
I've got a question for you, please. If we were saying basically you're looking at, say, 56 days, in your experience, are you finding that the mortgage companies are moving swiftly enough for you to be able to get a mortgage in that time frame?
Yeah, so if we do need to extend it, it's possible, but that average isn't an unrealistic average, it's true, which is why we ask for the survey to be done in advance.
Okay.
So that has to be done before we take financial commitment from the buyer, because it's obviously wouldn't be fair to do that because it's non-refundable. So yeah, because they've got the auction pack, we can move quite quickly with the lenders.
I think the big thing on a mortgage side of things, when they're not done quickly, it's chasing the rate, and you've got to know which lenders have got the right service level agreements. We have a tendency, if you're buying at auction, there's got to be some sacrifice somewhere. I think that's the biggest thing that certainly I know, is that it's if you're going for the cheapest possible rate with a small regional building society and they're asking for everything, it's 6-8 weeks sometimes with those providers. So if you know you're buying at auction, you know what type of finance you're going to take at the outset. Really, we'll ask what the service level agreements are to make sure it hits that deadline. If it's traditional auction 28 days, there are still providers out there that will do it within that time. You double it, I think from COVID, it was COVID that went from 28 to 56, was that right? With
28 still, yeah, so modern methods are 56, so
Yeah.
the traditionals are 28, yeah.
Yeah, traditional was 28 days, and to get that done in 28 days, it had to be some form of bridge or refinance another asset, because it's usually the valuers still at the moment, valuers are taking 2-3 weeks to go out in some cases, which is killing things, and that's where you look at other assets. Yeah, which I'll kind of go over it now, but there are some phenomenal facilities out there. So if you know you're buying at auction, you can second charge other assets, like have a huge overdraft facility, and you can dip in and out of it with finance and secured against other properties, and then refinance when you bought it. Yeah, so there's some quite clever things if you've got a plan to structure, and you know that you're going to buy at auction.
But I mean, typically we do sell to a lot of first-time buyers as well.
Yeah.
So it is doable,
Yeah.
because obviously they don't have that facility. So even if it needs to be extended slightly, it can be, but we're not talking much different outside of 56 days.
Sorry to put butt in
No,
that.
no, very helpful, very helpful.
Would you say just purchased one to own and sold, been dealing with own and sold for a number of years, and I'd honestly say that the problem is when you get after the exchange, the completion, sometimes it's lost with solicitors, but these people have got a dedicated person that keeps you informed every step of the way. It's reassuring that you haven't got to keep chasing this is what's happening. So it's really seamless, so thanks.
I haven't paid him, I promise.
It's a plan. It's from experience of
No,
of
brilliant.
using it.
Quick question, so technically 3 people can get the survey done and only one of them is going to buy the property.
Yeah.
How does that put people off?
No, because to that we would say obviously with private treaty, you have a survey and if something comes up you pull out. So you would obviously you pay for it, but it's no real different in that sense because nothing's secure with private treaty. So yeah, whilst there might be multiple, I mean obviously it would be managed by the auction specialist. We would deal with which buyers that we've got coming in and we wouldn't allow you know, copious amounts of surveys, but yeah, in a sense everybody's reliable to get their own survey.
I assume the seller can only reduce or is it a price during the auction round?
Yeah, can't do that. Yeah.
What does a limited title guarantee mean and how does it impact on the price?
What was that, sorry?
What does a limited title guarantee mean and how does it impact on the price?
Limited title guarantee.
Was that on one of your slides?
Probably not, no. It's just been looking at an auction property, sorry.
No, I don't think, I'm not sure it
No,
was.
sorry, I think this lady seen it on an auction property advertised, is that right?
Yeah, I've seen it on auction property
Right,
advertised.
Oh right, no, I'm not sure, I'm afraid, no, I'd have to check the and come back to you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.